Trishira the Drifting Tomb. The alarm on the Seeker of Truths was soft and pleasant. It had been designed that way because the Villani people did not handle sudden loud noises very well. But despite its gentle tone, the alarm made senior scientist Velith drop her food container and rush to the scanning station. "What is it?" she asked, her forearms already moving across the control panels. Junior technician Morath looked up at her with wide eyes. His gray skin had gone pale. "A vessel, Senior. Unknown design. It is drifting through Sector 7. Velith felt her antennae twitch with excitement. Unknown vessels were rare these days. The Galactic Conclave had mapped most of the known galaxy over the past 50,000 years. Finding something new was the dream of every exploration crew. "Show me," she said. The main screen flickered to life, and Velith saw the ship. It was large, much larger than their own vessel. The design was strange and blocky, with none of the smooth curves that most spacefaring species preferred. It looked old. It looked dead. "No active signals," Morath reported. "No energy readings from weapons or engines. Life support appears to be offline in most sections." "Most sections?" Velith asked. Morath checked his readings again. "There is a small area near the center that shows minimal power usage. Very minimal. It could be automated systems running on emergency reserves." Velith studied the ship on the screen. Something about it made her uncomfortable, but she could not explain why. She was a scientist. Discomfort was not a good enough reason to ignore a discovery. "Run the ship's signature through our databases," she ordered. "Let us find out where this vessel came from." Morath worked quickly. The Conclave databases were vast, containing information about every known species, every registered vessel, every explored system. If this ship existed in any record, they would find it. The computer beeped. Morath's pale skin went even paler. "Senior Velith," he said quietly, "you need to see this." She moved to his station and looked at the screen. The database had found a partial match, not to a specific vessel, but to a system of origin. The ship's construction materials, its design elements, and its energy signatures all pointed to one location. Sol system, third planet. Local designation, Earth. Velith felt cold. Below the system information was a classification code that made her hearts beat faster. Class 15 Deathworld, restricted, no contact authorized, no exploration permitted. "That is impossible," she whispered. "Nothing intelligent can evolve on a Class 15 world." The Conclave classification system for planets was well established. Class 1 worlds were paradise, perfect for life in every way. Most spacefaring species came from Class 3 or Class 4 worlds. Class 7 was considered harsh. Class 10 was barely survivable. No species in the recorded history of the galaxy had ever evolved past simple bacteria on anything above Class 12. Class 15 was considered a death sentence. The conditions on such worlds were so extreme that complex life was thought to be impossible. The gravity would crush bones. The atmosphere would poison blood. The radiation would destroy cells. The temperature shifts would freeze and burn in equal measure. And that was before considering the predators, the diseases, the natural disasters. Yet here was a ship built by hands that had evolved on such a world. "We need to report this," Morath said. His voice was shaking. "No," Velith said firmly. "Not yet. We need more information first. If we report an impossible ship from an impossible world with no evidence, we will be laughed out of the science division." "Then what do we do?" Velith looked at the drifting vessel on the screen. Every instinct told her to fly away and forget what they had seen, but she had not become a senior scientist by running from mysteries. "We board it," she said. The airlock of the unknown vessel was difficult to open. It had not been designed for Conclave standard connections, and Morath had to spend nearly an hour adapting their equipment to make a seal. But eventually the door opened, and Velith led her team inside. The ship was dark. Emergency lights glowed faintly along the floors, casting everything in a dim red color. The air was cold and thin, barely breathable even with their suits. "These corridors are large," observed Technician Yeneth, the third member of their team. "Whatever species built this ship, they were bigger than us." Velith nodded. The Villani were not a tall species, but these hallways would have been spacious even for the largest known races. The ceilings rose high above them, and the doors were wide enough for three Villani to walk through side by side. They moved deeper into the ship, scanning everything they passed. The technology was strange but clearly functional. Velith recognized some basic principles: power conduits, data cables, structural supports, but the execution was different from anything she had studied. "Senior," Yeneth called from ahead, "I found something." Velith hurried forward and stopped cold. It was a body. The creature lay against the wall, preserved by the cold and the thin atmosphere. It was bipedal, with 2 arms and 2 legs. Its skin was a pale brown color, and its head was covered in dark strands of something that might have been fur. Its eyes were closed, and its face was peaceful, as if it had simply fallen asleep. "A Deathworlder," Morath whispered with horror. "An actual Class 15 Deathworlder." Velith knelt beside the body, her scientific mind pushing past her fear. The creature was wearing some kind of uniform, practical and simple. On its chest was a patch showing a blue and green sphere. Earth, she realized. "Bipedal locomotion," she said, recording her observations. 2 eyes forward-facing. This species was a predator. 5 digits on each hand, likely for manipulation. Endoskeletal structure. She paused. This creature was built for survival. Everything about its form is efficient, adaptable, dangerous. "Can we leave now?" Morath asked. "Not yet. I want to find the central computer. We need to understand what happened here." They continued through the ship, finding more bodies along the way. Dozens of them, hundreds, all preserved in the cold darkness. Men and women, Velith learned from the ship's records, and even children. This had been a colony ship, carrying families to a new home. Something had gone wrong. The engines had failed. The ship had been left drifting, its inhabitants dying slowly as systems shut down one by one. Velith felt an unexpected emotion as she walked among the dead. Sadness. These creatures had crossed the vast emptiness of space, hoping to find a new beginning. Instead, they had found only cold and silence. "The environmental data from their homeworld is in this terminal," Yeneth reported. "Transferring it to our systems now." Velith reviewed the data and felt her legs go weak. Earth, a planet with gravity 30% higher than conclave standard. An atmosphere filled with oxygen, a gas that was corrosive and toxic to most species. Radiation bombardment from an unstable star. Temperature variations from frozen death to boiling heat. Water that fell from the sky. Ground that shook and split open. Mountains that exploded with liquid rock. And the life forms. Predators with teeth and claws. Microscopic organisms that invaded bodies and destroyed them from within. Plants that produced poison. Insects that drank blood. Everything on that world was designed to kill, and somehow, against all logic and probability, intelligent life had evolved there. Life that had built ships and reached for the stars. "This is wrong," Morath said. "This should not exist. These creatures should not exist." "And yet they do," Velith replied quietly. "They existed, they dreamed, and they died out here alone." "Senior Velith," Yeneth's voice was sharp with alarm. "My scanner just detected something." "What is it?" Yeneth's hands were trembling as she held up her device. "Life signs, faint but definite, coming from the section with minimal power." Velith stared at her. "That is not possible. This ship has been drifting for centuries. Nothing could survive that long." "I am telling you what my scanner says. There is something alive on this ship." Velith looked down the dark corridor ahead of them. Somewhere in the depths of this tomb, something still breathed. Something from a Class 15 Deathworld. Her fear told her to run. Her duty told her to continue. Her curiosity made the choice for her. "Show me," she said. They followed the life signs deeper into the ship, past sealed doors and empty rooms, until they reached a section that was different from the rest. Here the emergency lights were brighter. Here the air was warmer. Here faint sounds of machinery could be heard humming behind the walls. And here, on a door that blocked their path, someone had written words in a language their translators slowly decoded. "Survivors inside, please help us." Velith placed her hand on the door. On the other side, something was waiting. something that had survived conditions that should have killed it, on a ship that should have been its grave, from a world that should never have produced it. She opened the door. The survivors. The door slid open with a hiss of escaping air, and Velith stepped into a room filled with soft blue light. Her eyes took a moment to adjust after the darkness of the outer corridors. When they did, she gasped. Rows upon rows of transparent pods stretched before her, each one containing a figure lying still and peaceful. The pods hummed quietly, their surfaces covered in frost. Inside them, humans slept the deep sleep of stasis, preserved like insects in amber. There must be hundreds of them, Yeneth whispered. Velith walked slowly between the rows, counting. Her scanner confirmed what her eyes saw. 347 life signs, all weak but stable. 347 Deathworlders waiting to wake up. How is this possible? Morath asked. The ship has been drifting for over 200 years. Stasis technology cannot maintain life for that long. Their technology is different from ours, Velith replied. Perhaps they found a way. She stopped in front of one of the pods and studied the face inside. It was a young male, barely an adult by the looks of him. His features were relaxed, his chest rising and falling so slowly that she could barely detect the movement. He looked peaceful. He looked innocent. He looked nothing like a monster. Senior Velith, Yeneth called out. Over here. This pod is different. Velith hurried to where Yeneth stood. This pod was open, its lid raised. Inside, the cushioned bed was empty, but it showed signs of recent use. Someone had been lying there not long ago. A sound made them all freeze. Footsteps, slow and heavy, coming from the shadows at the far end of the room. Morath raised his scanner like a weapon, though it could not hurt anything. Yeneth backed away toward the door. Only Velith stood her ground, watching as a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a human, a female, based on the physical characteristics Velith had studied. She was tall by Villani standards, and her body moved with a careful, controlled grace that spoke of strength held in check. Her skin was a warm brown color, darker than the pale bodies they had found in the corridors. Her hair was black, cut short and practical. Her eyes were dark and tired, so very tired. She was wearing a uniform similar to the ones on the dead, but hers was worn and patched, repaired many times over. In her hands she carried a tool of some kind, not a weapon, but something mechanical. The human stopped when she saw them. For a long moment no one moved. Then the human did something unexpected. She smiled. It was a small smile, weak and exhausted, but it transformed her face. It made her look relieved. It made her look grateful. Finally, she said. Her voice was rough, as if she had not used it in a long time. I was starting to think no one would ever come. Velith's translator took a moment to process the language. When the words came through, she felt confusion replace her fear. You are not afraid of us? She asked. The human laughed, a short and tired sound. I have been alone on this ship for 23 years. I have watched my friends die. I have kept these people alive through failures and disasters and things that should have killed us all. I am too tired to be afraid of anything anymore. She lowered the tool in her hands and set it on a nearby console. Then she sat down heavily, as if standing had taken all the strength she had. My name is Ren Vasquez, she said. I am the captain of this vessel, or what is left of it. Velith took a careful step forward. I am Senior Scientist Velith of the Galactic Conclave Research Vessel, Seeker of Truths. We detected your ship and came to investigate. Galactic Conclave, Ren repeated. The word seemed to amuse her. So there are others out there. Other species, other civilizations. We always hoped there would be. You did not know? We had theories, signals we could not explain, but we never made contact. Ren looked at the pods around her. We were just colonists, farmers, teachers, engineers. We left Earth to find a new home because our old one was getting too crowded. We did not expect to find anyone else. Yeneth stepped forward, her curiosity overcoming her fear. You said you have been alone for 23 years. How? Ren's eyes grew distant. The engine failed, a cascade malfunction that we could not repair. We lost propulsion, communications, everything. The ship was dying, and we were too far from home for anyone to hear us scream. She paused, gathering herself. We had enough stasis pods for everyone, but someone had to stay awake. Someone had to monitor the systems, make repairs, keep the sleepers alive. We took turns at first, rotating every few years, but the others got sick. Radiation exposure, system failures, accidents. One by one, they died until only I was left. You have been maintaining this ship alone for 23 years? Valeth could not hide her disbelief. I sleep sometimes, Ren said. A few months at a time when things are stable. But mostly I work. I fix what breaks. I watch the pods. I make sure my people keep breathing. Morath was scanning Ren with his device. Your body shows extreme stress markers. Cellular damage from radiation, muscle deterioration, signs of malnutrition. You are killing yourself to keep them alive. Yes, Ren said simply. That is my job. Veleth felt something shift inside her. She had come here expecting to find monsters, savage creatures from a death world, dangerous and unpredictable. Instead, she had found a woman who had sacrificed everything to protect her people. A woman who smiled at strangers because she was too tired to fear them. We can help you, Valeth said. The words came out before she could stop them. The Conclave has resources, medical technology. We can wake your people, heal them, find them a place to live. Ren looked at her with an expression Veleth could not read. Hope and doubt and something else. Something fragile and desperate. Why would you do that? Ren asked. You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Because it is right, Veleth said. Because that is what civilized beings do. Ren was quiet for a long moment. Then she lowered her head and Veleth saw her shoulders shake. It took a moment to realize the human was crying. Thank you, Ren whispered. Thank you. Veleth returned to the Seeker of Truths and sent her report to the Conclave Council. She included everything. The ship, the survivors, the data about Earth, and her recommendation for immediate humanitarian assistance. She felt proud of what she had done. She felt certain the Council would agree. She was wrong. The response came within hours, faster than any communication she had ever received from the Council. The message was marked with the highest priority codes, and it was addressed not just to her, but to every conclave vessel in the sector. Veleth read it with growing horror. Attention all units. Unidentified vessel contains survivors of a Class 15 Deathworld species. This represents an unprecedented threat to conclave security. All contact with the vessel is to be suspended immediately. A military escort has been dispatched to contain and neutralize the threat. Do not approach. Do not communicate. Do not interfere. Neutralize the threat. Veleth knew what those words meant. The Council was not sending help. They were sending executioners. She thought of Ren, sitting alone in that room full of sleeping innocents. She thought of the tired smile, the tears of gratitude, the woman who had given everything to protect her people. And now that woman was going to die. They were all going to die, because they had committed the crime of being born on the wrong kind of world. Veleth looked at the message on her screen, and then she looked at her crew. Morath and Yeneth stared back at her, their faces pale with shock. Senior, Morath said carefully, our orders are clear. We are not supposed to communicate with the humans. Veleth stood up from her console. The Council gave those orders because they are afraid. They have never met these people. They do not know what I know. And what do you know? Veleth thought of Ren's face when she had offered help. The disbelief, the hope, the tears of someone who had forgotten what kindness felt like. I know that they are not monsters, she said, and I know that I will not stand by and watch them be murdered. She walked toward the airlock. What are you doing? Yeneth called after her. Veleth did not stop. I am going to warn them, and then I am going to find a way to save them. Are you coming with me, or are you going to follow orders? There was a long silence. Then Veleth heard footsteps behind her, both sets of them. She allowed herself a small smile. The door to the human stasis chamber opened, and Ren looked up from her work. Her face changed when she saw their expressions. Something is wrong, she said. It was not a question. Veleth did not know how to soften the blow, so she did not try. The Conclave Council has ordered your termination. Military ships are coming. They believe your species is too dangerous to exist. Ren was very still. Her hands, which had been holding a repair tool, slowly set it down on the console beside her. How long do we have? A few days. Perhaps less. Ren closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was no fear in her face. No anger. Just a deep and terrible weariness. Can you wake my people in time for them to run? There is nowhere to run, Velith said. And even if there was, the military ships are faster than anything you have. Ren nodded slowly. She looked at the pods around her, at the 347 people who had trusted her with their lives. Then we will not run, she said, but I will not let them die without a voice. I want to speak to whoever is in charge. I want them to look at us before they kill us. Velith felt a spark of hope. It was desperate and foolish, but it was there. I may be able to arrange that, she said, but you should know that the Conclave fears your kind. They will see you as a threat no matter what you say. Ren smiled that tired smile again. I come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned how to survive things that should have destroyed us. But we also learned something else. What? We learned that sometimes the greatest strength is not fighting. Sometimes the greatest strength is convincing your enemy that they do not need to be your enemy at all. She stood up and straightened her worn uniform. Bring me to your leaders, she said. Let me show them what humanity really is. The weight of fear. The military escort arrived in 37 hours. 3 warships, each one larger than the Horizon's Promise and the Seeker of Truths combined. They surrounded the drifting colony ship like predators, circling wounded prey, their weapons powered and ready. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of the Fist of Justice and studied the human vessel on his view screen. He was a Draken, a reptilian species known for their military discipline and their absolute loyalty to the Conclave. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his eyes were the color of dried blood. That is the ship? He asked. Yes, Admiral, his tactical officer replied. Scans confirm 348 life forms aboard. 47 are in stasis. 1 is active. 1, Korath considered this. 1 Deathworlder has been keeping the others alive for over 200 years. That is what the science team reported. Korath had read the reports. He had seen the data about Earth, about the impossible conditions that had somehow produced intelligent life. He had expected to feel many things when he arrived. Caution, determination, perhaps even a soldier's respect for a worthy enemy. He had not expected to feel fear. But he felt it now, cold and unwelcome in his chest. 1 creature, alone and starving, had maintained a dying ship for decades through sheer will and stubbornness. What could 348 such creatures do if they were healthy and angry? Open a channel to the human vessel, Korath ordered. I want to speak to this survivor. The view screen flickered, and Korath found himself looking at a face he had not expected. The human was female, smaller and softer looking than he had imagined. Her eyes were dark and tired, but they met his gaze without flinching. I am Admiral Korath of the Galactic Conclave Military Force, he said. You are Captain Ren Vasquez of the human vessel, Horizon's Promise? I am, the human replied. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Thank you for responding to our distress signal. Korath blinked. We did not respond to a distress signal. We are here to assess the threat your species poses to the Conclave. I understand, but I am still glad you came. We have been alone for a very long time. This was not how Korath had expected the conversation to go. He had prepared for defiance, for threats, for the savage posturing of a cornered predator. He had not prepared for gratitude. You are aware of why we are here? He asked carefully. Yes. Senior scientist Velith explained the situation. Your government believes we are dangerous because of where we come from. They have ordered you to kill us. They have ordered me to neutralize a threat, Korath corrected. Whether that requires killing depends on what threat you actually pose. Ren nodded slowly. A fair distinction. Then let me be clear, Admiral. We pose no threat to you. We are colonists, not soldiers, farmers and teachers and engineers. We left Earth because we wanted to find a peaceful new home, Not because we wanted to conquer anyone. Your species evolved on a Class 15 Deathworld, Korath said. The conditions that created you are beyond anything we have ever documented. You are built for violence, for survival at any cost. How can you claim to be peaceful? Because peace is a choice, Ren said simply. Yes, our world was harsh. Yes, we learned to fight and kill and survive. But we also learned other things. We learned to love. We learned to build. We learned to dream of something better than endless war. She paused and something in her expression shifted. It became heavier, older, weighted with memories that Korath could not see. My species has a violent history, Admiral. We have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. Wars over land, over resources, over ideas. We have created weapons that could destroy our entire world. And we came very close to using them. Korath leaned forward. Then you admit you are dangerous. I admit we have been dangerous, Ren said. But I also tell you that we chose to stop. We looked at what we had become, at the destruction we had caused, and we decided that we did not want to be that anymore. The ship you see before you exists because humanity finally learned to work together instead of fighting. We united our nations, pooled our resources, and reached for the stars. A convenient story, Korath said. But how do I know it is true? You do not, Ren admitted. You have only my word. But I am not asking you to trust me blindly. I am asking you to look at us. Look at this ship full of sleeping families. Look at me, a tired old woman who has spent 23 years keeping them alive. Do we look like conquerors to you? Korath did not answer immediately. He studied the human on his screen, searching for signs of deception, for the hidden threat he was certain must be there. He found nothing but exhaustion and sincerity. Even if I believed you, he said finally, my orders come from the Council. I do not have the authority to ignore them. Then let me speak to the Council, Ren said. Give me a chance to make my case. If they hear me and still decide we must die, then I will accept that judgment. But let us be heard first. The Council does not negotiate with threats. I am not a threat. I am a refugee. There is a difference. Korath was about to refuse when a second transmission cut into his channel. He recognized the signature. It was coming from the science vessel, Seeker of Truths. Senior Scientist Velith appeared on a split screen beside Ren. Admiral Korath, I apologize for the interruption, but there is something you need to know. I have been transmitting this conversation to the Conclave Public Network. Korath felt his scales flush with anger. You have no authority to do that. No, Velith agreed, but I have a conscience. And I believe the people of the Conclave deserve to see what their military is about to do in their name. She manipulated her controls, and a data stream appeared on Korath's secondary screen. View counts. Comment feeds. The conversation between him and Ren was being watched by millions of citizens across hundreds of worlds. This is insubordination, Korath growled. Yes, Velith said. It is. But these people have done nothing wrong except be born on a harsh world. They do not deserve to be executed in secret. If the Conclave is going to kill them, then the Conclave should have the courage to do it in the light. Korath's tactical officer spoke quietly. Admiral, the public response is significant. Many citizens are expressing sympathy for the humans. There are calls for the Council to reconsider. Korath looked at the data stream. He saw comments from dozens of species, many of them questioning the decision to destroy unarmed refugees. He saw petitions forming, protests organizing. The galaxy was watching, and it was not comfortable with what it saw. He turned back to Ren's face on the screen. She was still waiting, still patient, still calm. She had not threatened or demanded or begged. She had simply asked to be heard, and now the entire galaxy could hear her. Admiral, Ren said softly, I understand that you have a duty to follow orders. I do not ask you to abandon that duty, but I am asking you, one leader to another, to give us a chance. Let the Council see us. Let them decide with full knowledge instead of acting from fear alone. Korath was a soldier. He had served the Conclave for 40 years. He had never disobeyed an order, never questioned his commanders, never doubted the wisdom of his superiors. But he had also never looked into the eyes of someone who was willing to die rather than give up hope for her people. Tactical he said without looking away from the screen. Stand down weapons. Sir? You heard me. Stand down. He took a breath. I am going to request an emergency session of the council. The humans will be given the opportunity to speak. Ren closed her eyes. For a moment, Korath thought she might cry. But when she opened them again, they were clear and steady. Thank you, Admiral. Do not thank me yet, Korath said. The council may still decide to destroy you. This only buys you time. Time is all I have ever had, Ren said, and I have learned to use it well. The transmission ended, and Korath sat alone on his bridge, wondering if he had just made the worst mistake of his career, or the best decision of his life. On the horizon's promise, Velith found Ren standing among the stasis pods, her hand resting on the glass of one that contained a young girl. The child could not have been more than 8 years old. Your transmission was a risk, Ren said without turning around. If it had not worked, we would all be dead now. I know, Velith said, but I could not stand by and watch an injustice happen without trying to prevent it. Ren finally turned to face her. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. You are a good person, Velith. Your people are lucky to have you. I am a scientist. I follow evidence, not fear, and the evidence tells me that you are not the monsters my government believes you to be. Ren looked back at the sleeping child. Her name is Maya. She is the daughter of our chief engineer. When the ship failed, her father worked himself to death trying to fix it. He made me promise to protect her. And you have, for now. But the council meeting will decide everything. If they choose to destroy us, there is nothing more I can do. Velith moved to stand beside her. Then we will make sure they choose correctly. You asked to speak to them, and now you will have that chance. What will you say? Ren was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was soft but certain. I will tell them the truth about what we are, what we have been, and what we hope to become, and then I will let them decide if that is worth saving. And if it is not enough, Ren smiled sadly, then at least we will have been heard. Sometimes that is the only victory we can ask for. Turi, what monsters choose the Conclave Council Chamber was the largest enclosed space in the known galaxy. It sat at the heart of the station called Central Prime, a structure so massive that it had its own gravity generators and weather systems. The chamber itself could hold representatives from all 4,000 member species, though today only the 12 senior counselors were present. They sat in a circle of elevated platforms, each one bearing the symbols of their respective species. The chamber's walls displayed live feeds from across the galaxy, showing the billions of citizens who were watching this emergency session. Counselor Threen of the Villani stood at the central podium. As the current rotating head of the council, she had the responsibility of managing this unprecedented hearing. This session is called to address the situation regarding the human vessel, Horizon's Promise, she announced. The original termination order has been suspended pending review. We will now hear testimony before making a final decision. This is a waste of time, growled Counselor Vrax of the Draken. His scales were the same dark color as Admiral Korath's, and his voice carried the same military authority. The protocols regarding Class 15 species are clear. They must be contained or eliminated. There is no third option. Those protocols were written for theoretical scenarios, said Counselor Melith of the Aquari, her fluid form shimmering in her water-filled containment suit. No Class 15 species has ever been encountered. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our assumptions. Reconsider? Vrax slammed his fist on his podium. These creatures come from a world of death. They evolved to kill. Every instinct in their bodies is designed for violence and survival. Showing them mercy would be inviting our own destruction. You speak of instincts, said a new voice, ancient and crackling like dry leaves. But instincts can be overcome. The chamber fell silent as Counselor Veth of the Morthani spoke. The Morthani were the oldest species in the conclave, their civilization stretching back nearly 1,000,000 years. They rarely participated in council debates, preferring to observe and advise. When they spoke, the galaxy listened. Veth was impossibly old even by Morthani standards. Their body was more crystal than flesh, their movements slow and deliberate. But their mind was sharp as ever. I have reviewed the data from the human homeworld, Veth continued. It is true that Earth is a place of extreme danger. But the data also shows something else, something that many of you have chosen to ignore. And what is that? Vrax demanded. The humans did not merely survive their world. They transformed it. They built shelters against the storms, medicines against the diseases, tools against the predators. They did not become monsters. They became problem solvers. That only makes them more dangerous, Vrax argued. A species that can adapt to anything, that can overcome any obstacle, is the greatest threat of all. Or the greatest ally, Melis said softly. Threen raised her hand for silence. We are not here to debate theory. We are here to make a decision about 348 living beings. I suggest we hear from them directly before proceeding. She gestured to the central display screen, and the image of Captain Ren Vasquez appeared. The human was sitting in a chair aboard her vessel, her worn uniform clean and straightened, her face calm and composed. Captain Vasquez, Threen said, you have requested the opportunity to address this council. You may speak. Ren looked at the faces of the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. She did not seem intimidated by their authority or their judgment. She seemed almost peaceful. Counselors, she began, thank you for giving me this chance. I know that my species frightens you. I understand why. If I had learned that creatures from a Class 15 world were suddenly among us, I would be frightened too. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Let me tell you about humanity. We are a young species, barely 100,000 years old. For most of that time, we live like animals, fighting and dying and struggling to survive. Our world did everything it could to destroy us, and we responded by becoming harder, stronger, more ruthless. Vrax nodded grimly. As I said, but that is not the end of our story, Ren continued, because somewhere along the way, we changed. We developed language and used it to share knowledge instead of just territory. We developed tools and used them to build instead of just kill. We developed medicine and saved lives that nature intended to destroy. She leaned forward slightly. We developed love. We created families and communities and nations. We cared for our sick and elderly. We protected our children. We buried our dead with honor and mourned them with genuine grief. These are basic social behaviors, Vrax interrupted. Many species develop them. Yes, Ren agreed. But we developed them on a world that rewarded only selfishness and violence. We developed compassion in an environment that should have crushed it out of us. That was not instinct, counselor. That was choice. She stood up from her chair. My species has done terrible things. We have waged wars that killed millions. We have built weapons that could end all life on our world. We have hurt each other in ways that still shame us. But we have also done something that should be impossible. We have gotten better. Better? Threen asked. Better. Kinder. More just. Every generation. We have tried to be a little more humane than the one before. We abolished slavery. We granted rights to women and minorities. We created laws to protect the weak from the strong. We established organizations dedicated to preventing war and feeding the hungry and healing the sick. Ren's voice grew stronger. The ship you found drifting in space exists because humanity finally learned to work together. Nations that had been enemies for centuries pooled their resources for a common dream. We reached for the stars not to conquer them, but to explore them, to find new wonders and new friends. She looked directly at the camera, directly at the billions of beings watching across the galaxy. You ask if we are dangerous? Yes, we are. We come from a world that made us dangerous, but danger is not the same as evil. A knife can kill, but it can also prepare food. Fire can burn, but it can also warm. The question is not what we are capable of. The question is what we choose to do. The chamber was silent. Ren continued, her voice softer now. 347 of my people are sleeping in stasis pods, trusting that when they wake, there will be someone to protect them. Families, children, people who dreamed of a better life among the stars. They have committed no crime. They have threatened no one. They are innocent. And if we let them live, Vrax asked, what then? What will humanity become when there are thousands of you, millions of you, spreading across the galaxy? Ren smiled slightly. I cannot promise you that every human will be good. We are not a perfect species, but I can promise you this. We will try. We will try to be neighbors instead of conquerors. We will try to build instead of destroy. We will try to deserve the chance you give us. And if you fail, then you will have the right to judge us by our actions, not our origins." She paused. "But that judgment should come after we have had the chance to act, not before." Counselor Veth spoke again, their ancient voice filling the chamber. "I have lived for a very long time. I have seen species rise and fall, civilizations bloom and wither, and I have learned one truth that many younger beings do not understand." The old Morthani turned their crystalline gaze toward the other counselors. "The past does not determine the future. What we were is not what we must become. The humans are right. Choice matters more than origin." "Easy word," Vrax said bitterly. "But what happens when they choose wrong?" "Then we respond to that choice," Veth replied. "But punishing someone for a crime they have not yet committed is not justice. It is fear. And fear has led to more destruction than any Class 15 Deathworlder ever could." Threen nodded slowly. "I believe we have heard enough. The Council will now vote on the matter of the human species. The options are termination as originally ordered or conditional asylum with probationary status." The votes were cast in silence. Each counselor entered their decision into their private terminal, and the results were tabulated by the chamber's neutral computer. Threen looked at the results for a long moment before speaking. "By a vote of 7-5, the Council grants conditional asylum to the human survivors of the vessel, Horizon's Promise. They will be given probationary status within Conclave space, subject to review based on their conduct." Ren closed her eyes. Her shoulders, which had been held tight with tension, finally relaxed. "The humans will be assigned a settlement location," Threen continued. "They will be monitored, evaluated, and judged by their actions over the coming years. If they prove themselves worthy, they may eventually be considered for full membership in the Conclave." She looked at Ren's image on the screen. "Captain Vasquez, your people have been given a second chance. What will you do with it?" Ren opened her eyes. They were shining with tears, but her voice was steady. "We will wake our people. We will tell them what happened. And then we will prove to you that you made the right decision, whatever it takes. However long it takes." "And if we had voted differently?" Threen asked. "If we had chosen termination?" Ren's expression did not change. "Then we would have died with dignity, knowing that we asked for mercy instead of fighting for survival. That would have been proof enough of what humanity has become." The transmission ended, and the council chamber erupted into conversation. Arguments continued, debates raged, opinions clashed. But the decision had been made. Humanity would live. Now they just had to prove they deserved to. First dawn. The moon was called Harath 7. It was small and harsh, with thin air and poor soil. Temperatures dropped below freezing at night and rose to uncomfortable heat during the day. The local plant life was sparse and unappetizing. Most conclave species would have considered it barely habitable. The council had chosen it deliberately. "They expect us to fail," said Marcus Chen, the colony's chief engineer. He stood beside Ren on a rocky hillside, looking down at the prefabricated shelters that had become humanity's new home. "They gave us the worst possible location, hoping we would die quietly and prove them right about our species." Ren smiled. "Then we will have to disappoint them." It had been 3 months since the council's decision. 3 months since Ren had woken her people from stasis and told them everything. The shock, the grief, the fear. Learning that Earth was light years away and centuries in the past. Learning that they had almost been destroyed by aliens who had never met them. Learning that their survival depended on impressing beings who believed them to be monsters. Some had wanted to fight. Some had wanted to hide. Some had simply wanted to give up. But most had looked at each other, at the families and friends who had survived together, and had decided to do what humans had always done. Adapt, build, survive. The first few weeks had been difficult. The equipment the Conclave had provided was designed for species with different bodies and different needs. The food was bland, and the water tasted strange. The nights were cold and lonely, lit by unfamiliar stars. But humans were problem solvers. They modified the equipment, improved the shelters, developed new techniques for farming the poor soil. They worked harder than anyone expected, pushing themselves beyond what should have been possible. And slowly the colony began to thrive. "We have finished the second greenhouse," Marcus reported. "Crop yields are up 30% from last month. If we maintain this rate, we will be self-sufficient within 6 months." "What about the water recycling system?" "Completed yesterday. We are now running at 95% efficiency." Marcus paused. The conclave observers were surprised. They said our technology should not work that well. Ren nodded. "Good. Let them be surprised. Let them see what we can do when we have something to fight for." She looked out at the settlement below. What had started as a collection of emergency shelters was becoming a real town. Streets were being laid out, buildings constructed, gardens planted. Children were running between the structures, their laughter carrying up to where she stood. Children. That was the part that still amazed her. After everything that had happened, after centuries of drifting and decades of near death, children were playing again. They were adapting to their new home faster than anyone, making friends with aliens, learning new languages, treating the impossible as ordinary. That was humanity's greatest gift. Not strength or intelligence or endurance, the ability to turn any place into home. A shuttle descended from orbit and landed on the colony's small pad. Ren watched as a familiar figure emerged. Velith, her insectoid friend from the Seeker of Truths. The scientist had visited many times over the past months, bringing supplies, sharing information, and simply talking. Ren walked down the hill to meet her. "You look well," Velith said. "Better than when we first met." "Regular meals and sleep will do that," Ren replied. "Though I still find myself waking up at strange hours, checking systems that no longer need checking. Old habits are difficult to break." They walked together through the colony, past workers and farmers and craftspeople. Humans nodded to Velith as they passed, greeting her by name. She had become a familiar presence here, accepted as a friend. "I have news," Velith said. "The Council's quarterly review was completed yesterday. The results were positive. Several counselors expressed surprise at your progress." "Surprise is good. It means we are exceeding their expectations." "You are exceeding everyone's expectations. Some of the other conclave species have asked to visit your colony. They want to see the Deathworlders for themselves." Ren stopped walking. "Visitors?" "Curious ones. Scientists, diplomats, ordinary citizens. Word has spread about what you are building here. People want to know if the stories are true." For a moment, Ren felt a flicker of the old fear. Strangers coming to observe them, to judge them, to decide if they were worthy of existence. But then she looked around at the colony, at the life her people had created, and the fear faded. "Let them come," she said. "We have nothing to hide." The visitors arrived over the following weeks. They came in small groups at first, cautious and curious. Villani scientists studying human biology. Aquari engineers interested in the water recycling systems. Drakon military officers who watched with suspicious eyes, waiting for the violence they had been told to expect. They found none. What they found instead was a community working together. Humans who smiled at strangers and offered to share meals. Children who asked endless questions about alien worlds and cultures. Workers who were happy to explain their techniques and even happier to learn new ones. The Drakon officers left confused. They had been taught that Deathworlders were savage and unpredictable. These humans were friendly and welcoming. "Why do you not fear us?" one officer asked Ren before departing. "Should I? We came here expecting to find monsters. We came prepared for conflict," Ren shrugged. "And instead you found farmers and teachers. I imagine that must be disappointing." The officer was silent for a moment. "It is not disappointing. It is disturbing. My entire understanding of your species was wrong." "Good, Ren said. "That means there is hope for both of us." 1 year after the founding of the colony, a delegation from the conclave arrived with an official announcement. The probationary period was being shortened. Based on the colony's conduct, humanity was being considered for provisional membership in the conclave, decades ahead of schedule. The delegation was led by Ambassador Threen, the same counselor who had overseen the original hearing. She stood in the colony's central square, surrounded by humans and aliens alike, and spoke words that Wren had never expected to hear. The Galactic Conclave, having observed the conduct of the human species over the past year, hereby extends an invitation for formal diplomatic relations. Humanity will be granted provisional member status, with full membership to follow upon continued demonstration of peaceful intent. A cheer went up from the gathered crowd. Humans embraced each other, and some embraced the aliens standing beside them. Velith was there, her eyes bright with emotion. Even Admiral Korath had come, watching from the edge of the crowd with an unreadable expression. After the ceremony, Threen approached Wren privately. "You have surprised us all, Captain. When I voted to spare your people, I did so out of principle, not expectation. I did not truly believe you would succeed." "Failure was never an option," Wren said. "We had too much to prove." "Yes, but you have proven more than mere survival. You have shown us that our assumptions were wrong, that a species forged in violence can choose peace." Wren looked out at the colony, at the life her people had built. "We did not choose peace because we are weak. We chose it because we understand what war costs. We have buried enough of our own to know that victory means nothing if there is nothing left to win." Threen was quiet for a moment. "There are those on the council who still fear you, who believe this is all an act, a deception before conquest. Let them believe what they wish. Time will prove us true. And if other humans come, vessels from Earth perhaps, who did not share your journey, who did not learn your lessons." Wren smiled sadly. "Then we will teach them. That is what the older generation does for the younger, is it not? We share our wisdom and hope they learn from our mistakes." The ambassador nodded slowly. "You are a remarkable people, Captain Vasquez. We are trying to be." Later that evening, Wren walked alone to the hillside where she often came to think. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Below her, the lights of the colony flickered on one by one, like stars being born. Footsteps approached, and Velith appeared beside her. "Big day," the scientist said. "Yes, 1 year since we landed here. 1 year since we started over. Any regrets?" Wren thought about the question. She thought about Earth, lost and impossibly distant. She thought about the centuries in stasis, the decades alone, the near extinction. She thought about everything they had lost, and then she thought about everything they had gained. "No," she said finally, "no regrets." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the lights below. "What happens now?" Velith asked. "Now we keep going. We build, we grow, we become part of something larger than ourselves." Wren paused. "We prove that where we came from does not determine where we can go. Do you think the galaxy is ready for humanity?" Wren laughed softly. "I think the galaxy has never been ready for anything. That has never stopped us before." Far below, in the center of the colony, a group of children were playing, human children and alien children together, running and laughing in the fading light. They did not care about classifications or probationary status or ancient fears. They were just children, making friends. Wren watched them, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something she had almost forgotten how to feel: hope. "We did not cross the stars to find new wars," she said softly, almost to herself. "We crossed them to find new friends." Velith placed one of her hands gently on Wren's arm. "And you found them," she said. The stars came out overhead, and in a small colony on a harsh moon, humanity began its second chapter. Not as monsters or conquerors, but as neighbors, as partners, as proof that even the harshest origins cannot determine the brightest futures. Below them, the children kept playing, their laughter rising up into the endless night. It sounded like the beginning of something wonderful,